said that Gutfeld talks about you all the time.
Who is he? Really, who is he?
I don't watch the show.
He has a show.
I don't watch the
never
show.
heard of him.
Yeah.
I guess he's just obsessed with me.
No. Next, Joy's going to say she's never heard of carbs.
Consider Joy Behar was attempting to remain composed, but Greg Gutfeld gave her such a harsh verbal abuse that even her makeup began to question her life decisions. Did Joy actually have a breakdown? Or was it just her ego declaring bankruptcy? You won't want to miss this incredible showdown, which is dripping with hilarious pandemonium and comic gold, so stay tuned while it's live on television.
Seriously, her denial of knowing me is as believable as her red hair. But obsession? I mean, come on, Joy. Where would you even get that idea? Like Joy Behar's face, it's looking worse and worse by the day. More full of crap than Joy Behar after a night of scotch and Taco Bell. Her being named Joy is like me being named ugly. Joy wasn't there on the show. Apparently Mondays are her days off when she feeds in the pasture. It now smells like a humid day inside Joy Behar's moo-moo. The motives stink worse than Joy Behar's jog bra. I mean, assuming she jogs. Oh, wait, there she is. She has a point. Maybe I am obsessed, but some people are obsessed with Bigfoot, and they don't get to see him on TV every afternoon.
For decades, Joy Behar has been the sharp-tongued voice behind the microphone, voicing her opinions like a seasoned gladiator brandishing a verbal trident. However, even the fiercest warriors have bad days, and today was the day Greg Gutfeld arrived and turned the spotlight into a blinding interrogation lamp that roasted Joy like last week's forgotten casserole. Joy Behar has always been the queen of daytime TV sass, a master of the quick jab, the clever retort, and the theatrical eye roll that could silence a room full of toddlers throwing tantrums.
Week, Joy Behar accused Elon Musk of being pro-apartheid, but then begged him afterwards not to sue. Musk lawyers have yet to comment because they're still checking to see if it's legal to sue a cow.
Shots fired.
Just a legal question. I don't know why it's so upsetting. I don't make the rules in this country.
Okay, let's now take a moment to discuss Greg Gutfeld. The man can turn a funeral into a stand-up comedy special because he is a walking, talking satire machine. Greg's wit is so sharp it could sever steel, and his humor is dry enough to dry out. The Sahara. He's the type of man that choreographs the entire fight scene, complete with own-liners that hit like a cartoon character hitting a piano, rather than just throwing fists.
The View. It's become like a medical hospital that displays human misfailure. Like it's like here, let's look at this political oddity. You know, it's like it really is like the left-wing equivalent of a carnival sideshow, except instead of bearded ladies and fat clowns and two-headed cows. Well, let me rephrase that. But The View is a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. You know, how can you now speak the truth when for years you've been telling lie after lie after lie? Now you're carrying this big bag of rocks around you because it's too harmful for their ego to admit that we really were dishonest. And they could be honest. All they would have to say is, look, we hate Trump so much. We were willing to lie about Joe Biden because we felt he was preferable. We thought our lying and our cover-up was on your behalf. Just say that. You're still scum, but at least you're honest.
Not only do you feel ashamed when Greg targets you, but you are verbally abused with the dexterity of a surgeon and the brutality of a child who has just been told they can't have any candy for a week. Imagine this then. As Joy Behar relaxes, in her daytime throne, believing she has survived every challenge the media industry can present, she suddenly finds herself the target of the kind of verbal abuse typically saved for awful stand-up comedy open mic nights or reality TV showdowns.
Some news, the feral monsters of The View say they've never heard of you-know-who. True, the show that makes mornings hell claim that my name doesn't ring a bell. It's time for...
Our view on The View. Ugh.
Yeah, the witch's coven finally shows me some lovin'. Yesterday on The View, yours truly was the subject of conversation. Apparently, the broads have no idea who I am, or so they say. Hit it, Glass.
However, this was no lighthearted sparring or jab. Greg Gutfeld wasn't present to engage in conversation. No, he arrived ready with a full-scale artillery barrage designed to highlight every flaw, shaky argument, and mistake that Joy had unwittingly ingrained in her public image. The entire show was like watching a slow-motion car crash while munching on popcorn. Greg began with seemingly innocuous remarks that made light of Joy's most recent political tidbits and those unavoidable on-air incidents where emotion spilled over into incoherence. However, it swiftly turned into a demolition project. It was about tearing down the whole basis of Joy's on-screen bluster, not just about disagreeing. Greg's ability to transform Joy's characteristic fiery language into a montage of contradictions so obvious they could be seen from space is nearly astounding. He didn't have to become louder or use crude taunts. Joy's defenses were pierced by his exquisitely tailored sarcasm, which felt like a custom suit of verbal armor. What's even more beautiful is that there was no back and forth or argument. In this one-sided display of good versus evil, Greg stood tall and beaming. She fumbled during her performance, much like a ballerina who abruptly lost her routine. Indeed, the notorious instance where humor hit Joy Behar like a ton of bricks instead of fireworks. The stage was set with an uncanny quiet prelude that resembled a storm slowly building before deciding to unleash mayhem. With a deadly combination of razor-sharp wit and unwavering logic, Greg Gutfeld had been following Joy's recent public statements like a hawk looking for signs of weakness.
Republican presidential candidate Tim Scott dropped by the Furry Five earlier today, and I thought the U.S. had a distinct policy against torture. He took the opportunity to call them out over crap Joy Behar recently said about him, specifically that he doesn't get systemic racism, which is like saying Brian Stelter doesn't get Ben and Jerry's. But Joy Behar gets racism after all. She's been black on Halloween. Yeah. But Joy wasn't there on the show. Apparently Mondays are her days off when she feeds in the pasture. But that is convenient, right? It's like one of my aunts dies every time Brian Kilmeade.
As you can see, Joy had recently thrown out some zingers and hot takes. This was nothing out of the ordinary for her, but Greg thought there was blood in the water. Rather than making a lighthearted remark or nudging Joy, Greg delivered a scathing critique that not only questioned her position, but also gradually destroyed it. Greg's method was extremely lethal because of its surgical precision, as well as its humor. He didn't swing wildly and thrash about. Every logical argument was hammered home, every joke was timed flawlessly, and every syllable was calculated. It initially appeared to be light-hearted conversation, the kind of back and forth that TV viewers devour like popcorn. However, the tone changed more quickly than you could say awkwardly. What started out as an apparently light-hearted roast turned into a full-scale humiliation show. Then there was happiness. She usually embodies rapid wit and defiant reply lines, with a zinger ready to cut through any obstacle and a joke for every situation. However, the wheels came off this time. When her typical replacement faltered, her barriers clearly broke down, and the camera captured it all. For those who know her public persona as a fortress of sass and sarcasm alone, seeing her visibly startled was like spotting a unicorn sipping a coffee in Starbucks. But this wasn't just a case of damaged feelings or shattered pride. No, Joy's reaction ran much deeper than a simple reply gone awry. In the never-ending media landscape, public personalities such as herself bear the burden of constant scrutiny.
Sausage maker Johnsonville is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage for possible contamination with plastic fibers. Fortunately, authorities were able to track all 42,000 pounds to a single location in New York City.
This moment marked a rare and profound break in that armor, a fleeting glimpse of the human beneath the persona. It struck with viewers not just because of the embarrassment, but because it demonstrated the cost of spending life in the unforgiving limelight. The breakdown wasn't just an emotional reaction, it was a strategic vulnerability exposed bare in a high-stakes media war. Joy's moment of faltering wasn't weakness. It was a subtle surrender in a struggle when every word, every look, every pause is a move on the chessboard. For those paying attention, that breakdown revealed a story of exhaustion, pressure, and the brutal reality of fame's double-edged sword. It showed that even the sharpest tongues can get trapped in a trap of their own making, especially when faced with a merciless enemy like Greg Gutfeld. This wasn't just a public humiliation, it was a rare, humanizing moment shrouded in the turmoil of broadcast combat. What happened next, Joy? Behar's public persona, that well-crafted picture of unshakable confidence, began to shatter. The cameras caught something unusual, an unmistakable falter, a spark of vulnerability that normally lurks under layers of practiced smugness. There were no furious comebacks, no heated retorts, just silence. And if you watch closely, you might almost see the cerebral gears grinding furiously, hunting for a lifeline. A rescue line thrown from a quick-witted repartee's safety boat. However, the line never appeared.
Brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sonny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't...
The problem with being in the spotlight is that in a society where every word is scrutinized, every action examined, and every emotion magnified, you get better at building walls. Sarcasm deflecting and brashly confident walls. For years, Joy's walls have remained sturdy. She has made a fortune by converting personal insults into viral content and fury into entertainment. However, poor mortar can be found in even the toughest walls. Greg Gutfeld just discovered the in hers. However, this was more than just a personal humiliation moment. No, it was a cultural event, the sort of public display that provokes discussion. Not only about who said what, but also about the psychological effects of ongoing public scrutiny. Joy's collapse had nothing to do with losing an argument or being politically incorrect. It was a preview of what occurs when an adversary who is intent on taking advantage of every mistake clashes with the constant pressure to perform in order to amuse and influence public opinion. As soon as the video appeared online, social media erupted like a volcano. The typical group came to life, with some applauding Greg's brutal efficiency and others showing sympathy for Joy's infrequent display of humanity. Timelines filled with memes. Others depict Joy as a cartoonish character overtaken by a huge wave of sarcasm, while others feature Greg dressed as a gladiator engaged in verbal combat. The internet had spoken, and the decision was obvious. Joy Behar had been formally humbled on a stage she believed to be her own, and Greg Gutfeld had delivered one of the most devastating public takedowns in recent memory.
Well, I make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Those hens are always clucking. They get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, and then I get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, except on purpose. But every now and then, one of those dingbats inadvertently says something that reveals modern liberal thought so perfectly it deserves further study. You know, like a weird serpent that washed up on the beach and you want to poke it with a stick.
But why does this matter beyond the drama? Because it illustrates the raw truth behind the flash and glam of televised punditry. This isn't simply about two media celebrities clashing. It's about the grueling, often brutal ecosystem that pushes famous figures to juggle authenticity with performative toughness. Joy's crack wasn't only a personal failure. It was a reminder that behind the makeup and written lines, these pundits are human, vulnerable to the same fears and pressures as the rest of us. Greg's takedown was a masterclass in media warfare. No unnecessary shouting, no cheap shots, just pure distilled wit directed with surgical precision. It's the kind of performance that gets scrutinized by media analysts for months as an example of how humor can be weaponized without crossing the line into downright nastiness. And for Joy, it was a brutal lesson in humility. A momentary fall from grace that reminded everyone that even the most seasoned media veterans aren't indestructible. Oh, the aftermath. Where the dust settles, the keyboard warriors sharpen their claws, and every social media feed transforms into a battleground of hashtags, memes, and snarky views. Greg Gutfeld's verbal knockout didn't just ruffle a few feathers, it unleashed a digital tsunami. The moment the clip hit the internet, it spread quicker than a cat video with an unexpected twist.
I think it's a good strategy on the behalf of The View to pretend we don't exist when we know they know we exist.
That's a brilliant idea. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
Gutfeld. I'm sorry, not ringing the bell.
Usually at the airport.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. Huh? Really? I sit next to him? Really? How many? No, this is what elitists do who can't, like, if you don't know who someone is, how did you know to automatically hate him? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, that's how fake and full of she is. Gutfeld, never heard of him. Don't like him. Why? Because why? That's why I just turned to one of my kids. Because why?
Yeah.
Because I don't know who he is. Never heard of him at all in my entire life. But why? Because I don't know. Because they are the last TV show to talk about high turnover. Mm-hmm. We've been rolling 3 steady for a long time.
Yeah.
We don't take breaks in the commercial to get away from each other. Well, that's what the drinking's for.
Yes.
The conversation quickly shifted from whether Joy Behar just slipped to the point at which comedy may degenerate into embarrassment. Suddenly, the delicate art of media civility became the main focus. Was Greg's return humorous or a little too obscene for the prime-time audience? It was hailed by some as a masterpiece of sharp analysis. Others saw it as a savage illustration of the callous nature of modern punditry, where the pursuit of viral fame takes precedence over all other considerations. The polarizing ideological mob naturally emerged, with some siding with Greg as a champion of pure truth, and others standing together in support of him. Joy as the courageous combatant who dared to show vulnerability in a cruel battleground, Greg's performance went viral, attracting the attention of late-night hosts, social media influencers, and casual onlookers. That moment became a milestone of popular culture as every joke was replayed and every acerbic turn was examined. His fame skyrocketed, establishing him as the pundit who can demolish opponents with skill and make you laugh uncontrollably. It was the kind of public humiliation that, while painful for the victim, elevates the perpetrator to legendary status.
Here's Joy Behar talking about refusing to share a kidney.
I find my friends with a Trump supporter. I won't give them a kidney, but I could be friends with them.
Hey, Joy, it's a kidney, not a pizza. Of course, she's kidding at first, but then she goes on to explain the moral foundation for her resentment, and it's the same one that drives all deadly ideology.
In the meantime, poor Joy had to negotiate a labyrinth of pity and scrutiny. Some online communities showed sincere worry while praising her humanity and the infrequent fracture in her armor. Some weren't so nice, taking advantage of the opportunity to criticize her career and wonder if the once unstoppable daytime diva had lost her touch. The focus on her career path grew more intense, with fresh interest, and not always in a positive way. All of the previous mistakes, awkward moments, and dramatic scenes were suddenly unearthed like the greatest hits of moments that had previously been more endearing than embarrassing. This entire story illustrates a larger picture of the delicate, balancing act that media celebrities must execute in the divisive and high-pressure world of today. Every reaction is amplified, every remark is weaponized, and every weakness is taken advantage of. Public personalities must continually balance the need to project confidence and authority with the very real possibility of being seen as weak, defective, or, heaven forbid, human. Furthermore, let's face it, this is more than just a daytime TV soap. It's a sign of the larger cultural environment in which personal assault and entertainment ideology coexist in a muddled stew. Why is this significant, as there is more going on here than just a conflict between two personalities? It's a glimpse of contemporary media culture, where the stakes are extremely high and the boundary between cruelty and comedy is quite thin. It makes us wonder how much toughness a person can actually maintain before their performance breaks. How much do we, as viewers, want to see that tension unfold in real time, accompanied by a dash of sardonic humor? How honest can public personalities be without jeopardizing everything? Greg Gutfeld versus Joy Behar. A showdown is more than simply a fleeting event. It's a humorous cautionary story that serves as a reminder that every zinger is a real person juggling sensitivity and pride. One can only speculate as the story progresses as to who will attack next and who will make it through the subsequent round of this televised gladiatorial duel, in which words are weapons and nothing is off limits. There is little doubt that this is far from done, and the upcoming episode promises even more drama, laughter, and unavoidably more public outbursts. Looking ahead, this confrontation paves the way for a media landscape that is even more intense. The lines separating public persona and comedy critique are always moving, and situations like this show how serious the situation is. It has to be seen if Joy Behar recovers to reorganize, or if she emerges from this time stronger and more resolute. Greg Gutfeld, however, has undoubtedly increased the standard for television takedowns, and the media community will be talking about this episode for a while to come. Therefore, the rest of us get to see one of the most amusing, nasty, and simply hilarious humiliations in recent media history, while Joy may be licking her wounds behind the scenes. Furthermore, it is past time for someone to tell daytime TV that the pen truly is more powerful than the midday diva.